So my chapter is part of the book, and of course is all in tune with all the other authors. And I've been really concentrating on, the pathway to success. And really, I would say, are you there?
Yes.
I'm having some problems in my slideshow.
Okay. Don't worry. We can wait.
Hey, that's it. Yes, thank you. So the pathway to success is chapter 4, and I will be introducing myself as we go along, and I think my story will be part is part of it. So as a first thing is really how to win and keep clients is in the background. And I've been concentrating particularly on, what is success, how we can succeed, and how we can really achieve the best we can achieve. And inside of the winning and keeping clients, that they are tuned with what is important to us. So the word success, what does it mean to be successful? And I'm having some teething problem, that's it. So success is a big word. And of course, the book is for solopreneurs, for people who wanted to work for themselves. And this gives, I really start with myself and my husband. We left the corporate world in the early 90s, and we wanted to set up our own business, and which we did. But the main reason for us was to have a quality of life, something that we wanted to create and have more control of life, really, business life, and creating. We had a young family at the time, so success for us was to have the life that we wanted, to design our own life. And so that's success. That's what success means to us. And just to give you an idea, we started our business. We left the corporate world. We set up the company, and we just wanted to have a lifestyle. So this is what I really want to cover in the chapter: is having your business, gaining clients, keeping clients, but also creating a lifestyle. So we are going to spend the next 45 minutes together. And what I would really like to do is for you to have pen and paper to write down and having notes. And I know that Dawn will have some time at the end for questions, so that we can really bring to life a little more, or clearly if there are any questions. So the intention of this webinar is really to give you some insight. I'm assuming that you are here because you're interested in, whether you are already a solopreneur or you are thinking of setting up your own business. And I want to make sure that the time we spend together is valuable to you, and of course, you get value, and also have an insight that you can work on. I did mention that it would be useful for you to have some examples, something to, perhaps things that you're dealing with, something that you want to work on, so you can really get an insight. Clearly I'm going to say my story and what I've done, but more importantly is for you to be able to say, okay, anything that Anna said, can this apply to me? How can I apply it? So that can really be of use, and as I said, you can apply it to your own circumstances. And also at the end, as a coach, I would say perhaps you can have a list of actions you can take and see, how you can apply whatever I've covered today. So the content of the chapter is really the result of many things. I've been, professional training is one important aspect. Of course, as a coach or what we do is to have the training and to have the credibility of a recognized institution is very, very important. So professional training is important. Then my own experience. All I shared with in here is very much firsthand. Of course, there's some of the theory, but is experience that I have is my own experience. And of course is the, excuse me, the experience of clients. I mean, clients is something that we always learn. Each client can really teach us something new. We can learn from clients. And all of this has really given me the opportunity to develop an approach and a strategy that I will be sharing with you in this session. So just to give a brief summary of what, the professional training, what I've done, a bit background. I qualified as a life coach, and then I was accredited as a master coach. And I'm also an emotional freedom technique practitioner. I've always liked learning, and of course there is part of the development is keeping up to date, and it's something which I do, but these are my main qualifications. Then in the personal, I've spent over 20 years within the personal growth training and development industry. And that has been given me an opportunity to come across amazing coaches and amazing mentors. And I have been coached and mentored as well. So it's something which, direct experience. And then with the mentoring, I'm involved with the school where I mentor young year 10 and year 11 students. And that again is part of the professional training, because it is required to have some training, especially when you deal with, youngsters and teenagers. Then on my own experience, I have had the opportunity to work for amazing companies, and I did spend 20 years in the corporate environment, in corporate world, and I worked for one of the biggest firm of accountants or the predecessor firms, something which I think it created the basis for what I'm doing now. I just loved the company, I loved what I did, but the time had come to do something different, and I also wanted to have the opportunity to have experience in the national, in the NHS. And I did join, or I worked for the Mental Health Trust for quite a few years. And it was the acute care services, was the sharp end. I mean, to me, there was an education. And that's when my interest in mental and emotional aspect of life really was highlighted. And I love, again, it was amazing experience, and I learned from that. And that's all the things I'm really going to share, or they are part of the putting together the chapter for the book. And then, of course, the experience of as a life coach and mentor. I've been doing this now for quite a few years. And my own experience has been with P&E Associates, is the practice. I'm a partnership with my husband. We set it up in the early 90s, and that has been, again, it was really educational to work with a couple, to work with the young family. And what I'm sharing in the chapter is very much part of the experience that I had working. The dynamics changed from the corporate world. We work from home, so all the impact that had on on our lives, and again the learning, what I've learned from that. And then the client backgrounds, the clients. And clients are clear what we serve. We are here to serve, and they range the range of professional people, solopreneurs, and very recently I've been working with people who are transitioning from being employed to be self-employed, and all the dynamics that change. That has been also personally, I had a transition from being an employee to be self-employed. So that's again, we're talking from practical and direct experience. And then women returning to work. This is something which, again, is part of the people of the clients I have worked with or are working with. So all of this has really given me the opportunity to develop my own approach and the strategy. And the main pillars of the strategies, or the strategy, is really responsibility and ownership, circumstances and mindset, and communication and new habits, and of course, taking action and fulfilling goals. And I will be going through that, briefly, just to again give you a background of what it really takes to win the clients and to keep them and have a successful business. So the main pillar is responsibility and ownership. I think responsibility is really a big word, and different people react to it in different ways. To me, responsibility and ownership is really where we are responsible for our own life. One way or the other, we are where we are, and it's important to take responsibility in the context of leadership. Especially when you run your own business, you are a leader in your company, you're a leader in your life. And to my mind, the responsibility and ownership are really very key. And this also requires the impact of being responsible of our own beliefs and what we believe in, and what really matters to us. So this is all part of the responsibility and ownership. The next pillar is really the circumstances and mindset. I mean, clearly we have different backgrounds. We live the life we live, and we brought up in certain ways. And clearly our past, our circumstances are impacted by our experiences. And it is really important to manage our own conditioning and being aware of what is it that makes us tick. So as human beings, and also this changing from being employed to being self-employed or whatever requires change. And as human beings, we resist change. So it's really important to recognize that, let go of the resistance, and knowing that the ideal circumstances may never arrive. So it's a risk, taking a risk, and this is all part of of what we do, and that is by working for ourselves, by creating our own activity. That's part of embracing the risk and letting go of the past, and just moving on and being able to embrace change. And then the next field is really the communication and habits. I mean, clearly communicating is very, very important. Is not just communicating with others, but communicating with ourselves. And I think that especially when doing our own thing, it is important to find out, to be aware of what we really say to ourselves and how we communicate, and really the authenticity of the communication. And of course, looking at what we do, if we transition from being employed to be self-employed, the habits will change. At a personal level, I found that I love working in the corporate world, and I had developed useful habits. But I did find that as my circumstances changed, and working from home, the habits that I had developed in the corporate world were perhaps not as useful or as productive. So it's really important to be aware of the habits we have and how to create new habits, because again, that's part of the change, part of embracing the new circumstances. So then the next one is really, the pillar is really taking action and fulfilling goals. I mean, ultimately, unless we take action, nothing will happen. The action is really what makes the difference. And the part of the practice, I mean, of course, for any kind of activity, and there is the doing the same thing time and time again, in being able to practice what we need to do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's for your own business. In fact, there are things that need to be done day in and day out. And when I talk about practice, it's not really the right or wrong. It's not that a practice is wrong, that what we do is right or wrong. It's just doing something that needs to be, consistency and resilience. I have this belief that I start something, I don't really say if, but when. So if we practice it's really being able to say it's going to happen, is the when. And then going and doing things time and time again is really that allows us to do that. And of course, the next thing is really aligning actions with the goals. As solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, we have an idea, we want something specific we want to accomplish. And of course, the actions we take, they have to be supporting and in congruence with the goals that we want to achieve. So the next thing is really looking at all of this, is looking at the business, what we do. And the approach I've adopted in my chapter, I'm really looking at the business and our lives. The majority of us, people usually go and want to work for themselves as a way of creating their own lives. And especially as an entrepreneur or especially a solopreneur, the business life and your life really go together. So I have this analogy of relating to it as your business and your life is like the front and the back of your hands. Although they are really distinct, they do move together. And it's important that we actually harmonize and we work and we are in dance with both of them. So this has been one of my it's really been important. It's one of the not highlight, but where I concentrate in the chapter. If we take care of ourselves, everything will follow. So it's really important to look at the business, what we want to accomplish with the you. And as I said, the two things go together. So in an ideal world, that's what we want. We want to achieve things, and if everything goes well, things work well, then brilliant. We have a strategy, we have we know what the clients we want, we have an approach that works. And if that works, brilliant. Let's carry on doing whatever has already been done. So, the results are achieved, and it's important to celebrate. So that's what we do. However, life is not quite as simple. And we know that there are challenges, and we do all we can, but clearly the results that we want to accomplish are not always achieved. And the approach I have adopted in my book, and the way I see it, and something which I have really applied from my own business and what I share, is that I see the business that there are two aspects. There is the practical and logistic thing, is important to have, and this is something that my colleagues have, my co-authors have given, amazing strategies and suggestions on how to, they've expanded in this. You have a message. It's important to have a message, a clear message that is consistent with what matters to you. Then, of course, the contacts. Is important to create contacts and have a client base. We want to win clients, and that's the aim. And of course, how we want to communicate with them, the content, the growth, and following up. They are all very important aspects. They are key aspects of the business. And of course, if the results are not achieved, it's necessary to look back and looking for consistency, what kind of gaps there are, whether there's a strategy, whether there's a marketing strategy, cash flow, or all the aspects. They are really fundamental, for the business. And then, of course, by looking at that, analyzing that, then one can find out what's missing, and really looking at technical support or information, and really finding an answer, but by being able to go through and looking at what has what's missing, so that the action can be taken. So this is what I call the technical part. But the area that I have been involved with, which I'm passionate about and enjoy, and I've been concentrating on, is the next aspect, the results that not achieved, and looking at the U element. Again, they do go together. They cannot be isolated and things are connected. But as for the purpose of this webinar, just as a way of explaining how I see it. And this is something which I do as practice, but also my own experience. I found that I have had amazing results by going through doing this. So if the results are not achieved, is a way of finding out what's happening. Now, I personally found, and then with the clients, that we know on paper what we should be doing, but so often we don't do it. And the question is, how come? And that's where I'm interested in, is really going beyond what seems to be in the surface. And, clearly this is not for everybody, because I'm not saying that everybody will have these issues, but if the results are not achieved, there has to be a reason for it. And of course, if one goes through the logistics and the strategies, then we really go down to the U part. And the way I approach it is being able to really identify what the issue is, specifically if things are not going well. And rather than having it general, rather than keeping it general, to go down to specifics, is because that the specific part is when you can just really learn and you can find out what is in the background that might not seem so obvious in the foreground, just as obvious. So the way I see it is that, let's say we identify an issue. What is the frustration? What is the problem? Or, what is in practical terms, what's happening? So just describing, and again, as I said, choosing a particular example. And by doing that, then you're looking at the emotional element. What's really going on? What's happening? And this is done by going through having a conversation. Is finding out past experiences. What could be the source of sabotage, new habits? And the way I really do that, it's just asking the clients questions or asking myself questions, and being able to get to the core of it, and being able to understand and really gain a better understanding. The best way to do this is perhaps just giving you go through the issue, and by looking at what the problem. So you look at the facts. What are the facts? What is really going on, and finding out whether the issue or the facts, they have feelings and emotions. So being able to develop a conversation that really enables me and the client to find out more, and looking at the feelings attached to the issue and the emotion, and also whether those feelings and emotions are familiar, because it's really possible to look at the theme or whether there is a pattern to it. So by doing that, then you're expanding and looking at the facts. The facts are the facts. There's something happening, but also then asking, can these facts be seen coming from a different angle? And also, are those facts causing upset? What is really going on? Or are there any conflicts? Or the priorities? What are the priorities? Especially moving from being employed to being self-employed, the priorities change, the dynamics change, and expectations. What is really what expectations we have, and working on understanding the expectation is a very valuable exercise. So once we do that, we can then look at the next stage. And what I usually, this is again a conversation I have developed with the client, and really looking at it, and looking at, let's say, the conflicts. Are they business related or people related? And on the expectations, are the expectations real, or the beliefs. And I think this is really very, very important, because transitioning, for example, from being employed to being self-employed, the expectations you have of yourself, so often we expect we should be able to do everything ourselves, or whatever we've been used to, or that one wants to be independent. So it's really very important to look at the kind of expectations we have of ourselves, of others, and clearly that is all part of understanding what is really going on and being able to gain clarity. So all of this, I think, perhaps I can just summarize it with an example that gives you, put some substance to what I'm trying to do. And one of my clients, Andrew, it was a very interesting experience, because Andrew was an HR consultant who was working for a medium-sized organization. He was in mid-40s, and he was transitioning from being an employee to self-employed. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He knew exactly what his niche market was, and everything on paper seemed to be brilliant, to be the way he wanted it. Now, he did leave the company because he felt a bit dissatisfied, and he resigned. It was a conflict. So, when he started working, he said to me, can you support and start working with me? I said, okay, what is the real issue? Because, given that you seem to know what you want to do, and, on paper, everything seems to right. And, naturally, there were various things, but we came down to one of the issues was that he was procrastinating. He wasn't really as active as he wanted to be, and he knew he could be. So we said, okay, let's just work on the issue, the procrastination. And I went through with Andrew through the process of really saying, I said to him, first of all, I said to him, what you're not taking responsibility for, what is actually happening. And we went through the circumstances he found himself in, the mindset. So we went through the pillars of my approach. And it was really interesting, because we went through all the issues that they came up for him, and we worked at it for several sessions. And what we did, we actually made a list, he highlighted, or he realized that his level of awareness for some of the aspects was not as good as perhaps, there was an increase in the level of awareness on how he had behaved, what he had done, not in any right or wrong. It was just being able to say, oh yes, like I could have done something different. And one of the major areas was the undelivered communication. And basically he was clearly, he was in the company where he was working. There had been some changes in the organization. He was asked to identify his own role, what he wanted to do, his job description. And he was quite happy with that. But as time went by and, naturally he started working, there was a conflict, because what he thought he would do is not what the boss asked him to do. So that really created some conflict. But we did find that perhaps he had undelivered communications, because rather than going to the boss and say, look, this is not working, he would talk to his friends and to his colleagues and the family and complaining about it. I mean, clearly he realized that perhaps he could have done things differently, or could have said something differently. And the other thing which I think impacted him was the unfulfilled expectations. He had created his job. He knew that he was quite excited, but all the expectations he had were not being fulfilled. So clearly he was able to see things he hadn't seen before. So his level of awareness had increased, and that is what we worked on, and that's what we did. So effectively, what he did, he was able to view what happened in a different way. And that was quite amazing, because he just realized, he became aware. and he's thinking, oh, I could have done things differently. I could approach things differently. So he was able to review his own circumstances coming from a different angle. And that was quite very powerful for him, because he was able to really think, I can see what's happening now. And he was able to, and we looked at, and together we devised an action plan by going through that. And one of these action plan was to go and talk to his ex-boss. And what was interesting was that we actually mocked a conversation, because the aim was for him to go and talk to his ex-boss in a powerful and respectful way. It was not, not complaining, absolutely not, but was just a way of communicating powerfully with his ex-boss. And in fact, we did mock some conversations so that he was able to practice what he wanted to say and how he wanted to say. And the whole experience for him was, he really produced amazing results, because by going to the clarifying what was going on in the background, and clear, I call it unfinished business, is if there is something has not been said, or if something is, created perhaps confusion or regret or resentment, or things that didn't go according to, didn't go according to plan, is really very important to, to clarify. So that's what he did. But the amazing results were that by talking to his ex-boss, he was able to authentically say what had happened, what he wanted to do. And within, it must have been no more than 3 or 4 weeks, he was able to get some contacts from his ex-boss that enabled him actually to get the largest client up to that point. That's something which he thought he would never, ever be able to do. And that was, to me, as a coach supporting, it was just brilliant to see success, to see him that he had really grown, and he had learned and really regained his power, and he was able to just go on. We do keep in touch, and we do speak from time to time, but clearly that was an amazing step he took, and it was quite an amazing result that he achieved. So I hope this has given an idea of what I concentrate on. And if you're listening to me and you've just say, I'll just ask a question, do any of these elements, what we covered, or what Andrew experienced, is something that, considering you're looking at your own issue, is it something that is familiar? Just is a way of really becoming aware, or becoming aware of what's happening. So just for you to take, to take on, and perhaps make a note. And if you have any questions, we can, I can answer the questions at the end of the session. So
I think that's a great example, Anna, of you coaching a client who is, so it's not about you as a coach getting more clients per se. It's certainly about you keeping a client, but you were coaching a client who actually, through 360-degree feedback, by going back to his old boss, landed the biggest account of his life. So that's fantastic.
Exactly. Is actually, this is one of the, is very important, because by dealing with the things that, what I call the unfinished business, there is clarity. Because in Andrew's case, he was able to appreciate what's actually going on within the company, things that he hadn't appreciated at the time. So that is, and of course, his ex-boss knew how great Andrew was. So he was able to regain the trust and having a very valuable contact. So this is something which, I believe firmly that is very important to consider, and very important to spend time on. And, rather than say, oh, that's gone past. No, things do stick around.
Undelivered communications. I've not heard that before.
Yes, undelivered communication, things that we want to say, but we don't say it. Or we might say to the person who won't make any difference, because it's not point in talking to someone who is a colleague, or even, they're not the ones that will make the difference to what's happening. So the undelivered communications are very important, yes. Any other question that comes up on this that perhaps would clarify things a little bit more, or shall I just carry on.
Please carry on.
Okay, so this is so the just really looking at, we're looking at the business and the you. The two things do go together, and it's really important to once you've gone through the process, being able to review it and add whatever the things that come in the background, that come on the surface, that perhaps you had not noticed up to that point, or not paying very much attention to it. So this is is reviewing what matters to you, review what what's happening, and again having this, the two things do go together. Because if you are disempowered because you are upset about the way you left the company or the way someone is treating you, whatever, it's going to impact the business. So it's really important to keep the two things together, or at the same time, sometimes we perhaps spend so much time in the business that we really forget about other aspects, family and, all the things that we want to do, the quality of life that we all want, by working for ourselves. So by doing that, what is really possible is to review, and this is again something which I recommend or invite my clients to look at what's happening, and then recreate and develop the vision for the business. Things are they move so fast, and things move fast. And when something doesn't really go into plan, like with Andrew, was a very difficult time for him, and it was quite challenging because he had to do things that he wasn't really comfortable doing, and he was resisting. But then once he went through the process, he was able to recreate and develop the vision for the business. And again, it's very empowering, because you are able to apply and see things differently. And when something is authentic, then that authenticity comes through in your thoughts and your thought process and your plans. So by doing that, then the next thing is really, again, for the business, the practical thing, the message, the clients, or the follow-up, all of what I call the practical things. They are very important. Review them on the basis of what the new knowledge or the new discovered expertise or whatever has come up at an emotional level, and just really looking at it again. Then the next thing about the maintaining and the mental and emotional well-being. I mean, to me personally, especially, I've really seen when I was at the acute care services, or different people, mental health, doesn't matter what area you're in, is very, very important. And I believe, and especially considering what's happening in, the circumstance in the last few months, what's happening, the times, months and years to come, the maintaining the mental and emotional well-being is going to be so key, to be grounded and doing whatever is necessary, because that will add the bottom line. I am sure it will impact the profitability of the business, will impact the success and maintaining the clients, because of course that is all part of it. Being able to to take care of, be responsible for for the business. And what that does then allows us to really create what I call congruence between what we want, what we achieve. We are working for ourselves, so we work where we want to be independent and having that flexibility. So it is really important to create that congruence between ourselves, what we do, and what you offer, and creating that. And that is what, to my mind, really enables us to win the client, to keep them and serve them for as long as they want to serve. And I have had clients, I have several clients for years. They come back to me and they say, "Oh, can I help?" And that is the most satisfying aspect of being able to just pick up where you left off, and the journey. So this is really what this is. This is all about: how to win the clients, how to keep them, and how to serve them in the best way possible. So this is what I wanted to say. I've covered a lot, and I'm sure that there might be questions. So it's really now for any questions or anything that you can ask me anything.
Thank you, Anna. I think you're absolutely right to end on a note that once a client, always a client, particularly if it's a relational client as opposed to a transactional customer. As we know, a transactional customer buys the cheapest and is not particularly interested in the relationship, buys it and moves on. Whereas a relational client is somebody that we have a relationship with. And like you, I've got clients who a decade later will come back and say, I've got another goal, I'd like to do a couple of sessions, or 6 months later, I'd like an MOT session to check where I am with such and such. So remember that, you know, it's not that you've lost clients or clients have left you, unless they've actually said, never darken my door again. They're still a client. So they're still fair game to stay in touch with and keep building on that relationship. So I guess your pathway to success, Anna, is really a strategy for a successful work-life balance. Somebody who wants to have a practice and enjoy, as you were describing, a young family life and a new business as well. So in essence, the pathway to success can be summed up in work-life balance strategy. Yes,
because one of the people I've known, come across, the majority of people want to have, they want to start their own business, they work for themselves, solopreneurs, as a way of having more flexibility and being able to really enjoy it. And I think it is very important to, you know, of course, making money and having a profitable business is important, but it's also the quality of life, and that is the pathway to success. Is, for me, is really having it all. How can we have a great life, success in business, but also have that emotional element? You know, it is important, the quality, it really goes back to the quality of life, developing a strategy, and it's something that requires effort. I mean, when I started my, company with my husband over 20 years ago, we created a partnership. We created financial security, but we also created a quality of life. It gives us the flexibility. And I believe that that's what really people want, and having that, the stability, of course, on a financial sense, but also the quality of life goes with it. And the pathway to success means to have quality of life.
And I presume also a lot of what you were talking about was self-coaching, talking yourself through it, because as you said in one of your case studies, the situation didn't change, but through changing our perception of the situation, we're able to deal with something. So, that covers all the things outside of our control. We cannot change anything or anybody. What we can change through self-coaching is how we perceive a situation, and therefore make it better. And that's where the responsibility comes in.
Yeah, and also, I mean, clearly these are not for everybody. Not everybody has the same, the same experience. For me, it's really looking at a niche, people who might want to succeed. There is something that they've tried different things, different avenue, but they're stuck. So clearly is not, what my chapter might not be relevant to everybody. Is a way, they might just be interested in interest. So it's really, I suppose it's because personally I found that if something is on paper is perfect or is right, but there is a block. So it's really concentrating and looking at people who have, they're blocked, and there is still the pathway to success, because you can still succeed even though, one feels blocked.
Well, that's it. I mean, everybody's definition of success is different. For some people it's financial freedom. For some people it's not being tied to a corporate desk. It is different for everybody. I really like your analogy of the hand, and I'll think about that, because I've always, as a health practitioner, I tend to think of the health of the client is very similar to the health of the business, particularly if it's a small medium business, and vice versa. The health of the business is often reflected in the health of the client. So if the client is feeling lethargic, the MD, the owner of the business, they're losing their identity, it's work 24/7, they're really feeling jaded, that can kind of tell in the communication and the atmosphere in the company. So that reminds me of your hand analogy. It's two different sides, but actually they work together. They have to work together to have success. So that will stay with me. So yeah, as Anna says, questions please. So just unmute yourself and ask Anna while we've got her dedicated time and attention, because she's written a very interesting chapter on success and work-life balance for all us solopreneurs in the coaching world. So feel free to ask any questions. While you're thinking about your questions, I would like to reiterate that obviously reading this great book written by what I call the Magnificent Seven co-authors, you know, it's a really good, entertaining read. It's packed with tips, questions, and examples. But actually, unless you take action, it's just another self-help book. It's not actually going to do a great deal for you. So you have to take action. And that's why we're bringing out the accompanying workbook very shortly. So we'll keep you posted about that. I presume, if you can't unmute yourself, then put your questions in the chat box, please. Even if you just want to say hello, where you're from and what you've got out of today, just give Anna some feedback. And while you're doing that, I'll say that the next chapter that's coming up is Maria Hocking. And her webinar is on June the 24th. And she has a strategy called PAVE. It's a very heartfelt way of doing business and not just treating people as dollar signs. So it's really networking and doing business from the heart. And that's why I think this book is quite unique in so much as it's a very conscious, almost spiritual approach to doing business. It's not a ka-ching, how do we make another buck type of book. It's about building relationships with your clients. So that's the 24th of June. And I think it's a morning one. Let me just check. Yes, it's at 11 o'clock in the morning. So there's the date for your diary. So if anybody doesn't have any more questions, we will wrap it up with thanks to you, Anna. You can go and enjoy the rest of your Friday and unwind, ready for a well-earned weekend in the sunshine in London. So I think that's it, everybody. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And I'll see you on the next call. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.